Hello to all. Welcome to Produce, Mix, Fix and Conquer. My name is Rich Steve Beck. I'm the admin and also the founder of this community. It is an absolute honor to bring on our next guest, which will be the fantastic mastering engineer, Mr. Bob Katz. So to give you some background on Bob, so he has mastered 3 Grammy Award-winning albums. He's also written the legendary, phenomenal book, Mastering Audio, The Art and the Science, considered by many as the definitive guide to mastering audio, which has also been translated to Chinese, German, and Spanish. Our guest has also taught at the Institute of Audio Research. He's also recorded many jazz and classical artists at the renowned Chesky Records, and he's also recorded the first ever 96 kilohertz 24-bit audio DVD, as well as being a forever audio innovator. And he also does many guest speaking. He goes to many universities and does many chats. He's also speaks multiple languages, and he is also apparently a fantastic salsa dancer, so we've been told. So without further ado, Mr. Bob Katz.
Oh my God. The salsa dancer is Mary.
Oh, okay.
Who's on the camera over there.
Hey, Mary.
I'll take credit for every other adjective if you want.
Okay. How you doing, Bob? You good?
I'm wonderful. Innovating all the time. Buying new gear. We'll look at some gear and whatever you'd like. Great
stuff. Can't wait to dig in and have a look around your studio as well. But it's an honor. So thank you very much for joining us today, sir. So let's start off at the very beginning. So I know that it's been an incredible journey for you from the 70s when you started off in audio. So tell us where you started and tell us how your journey began in audio.
Okay, 3 hours from now. All right. No, I think I can cut this way down. Sure. I started out as an audiophile, whatever that means, lots of good hi-fi gear, and then I moved into, I was a clarinetist until about the age of 30. Now I prefer the other side of the microphone. I'm much better on the other side of the microphone, at least I hope so. And I got into recording and did a lot of audiophile recordings of different bands and orchestras and musicians, direct to 2-track. And that direct to 2-track training and the kind of editing and processing or mastering or EQing that I had to perform, I think kind of set the stage for leading into mastering, because if you can work on all kinds of tricks to make your mixes sound good by going from tape to tape, you learn things. And I worked with a graphic equalizer and using monitors that I trusted, worked in that direction. And that was the natural progression until I moved to New York and was still an audiophile and decided to, the Village Voice, the counterculture hippie magazine of the time, did an interview with me called, you heard about it? Called Sex with a Proper Stereo. And and it was a full-page spread inside of the Village Voice newspaper, and they talked about the guy. This is BM, we say, before Mary, the guy who had giant refrigerator-sized loudspeakers in his apartment and nothing in the refrigerator. No way. So that kind of set the stage. And an audiophile who is also a musician and producer named David Chesky, who you have heard of, read that article and filed it in his mind. You know, I want to start an audiophile record company, and I'd like to hire a recording engineer who is also an audiophile. And the other interesting thing about having been and still being an audiophile is that I have the sound in my head, or the feeling of what natural dynamics are, by being in front of musicians, a big band, recording a big band, recording a grand piano, all kinds of both electric and acoustic instruments, and also groups in concert as well. I'm very familiar with what those natural dynamics sound like. So whatever music I am mastering, I try to apply some of the dynamics and the feeling that was there in the music, or that is the musicality of a natural recording. So that's the kind of the progression.
Amazing. So good. Thanks so much, Bob. So is that how you, so I know that you're a massive innovator of dynamics, and you're a massive fan of dynamics, as you said. And so tell us how the K system came to be. So how did you come up with the K system?
Okay. Well, what I being very familiar with the film calibration for large theaters and having a home theater, I calibrated my monitors to produce 83 dB per speaker. You see the big speakers back there, but that's part of a surround system, actually.
Okay.
At 83 dB per channel at minus 20 dB FS, okay, with pink noise. And what I discovered and I also used a calibrated monitor, like we'll be taking a look in a little bit at.
Sure.
Can you get, I don't know if you can get it. No, actually Mary's in the way. Oh, there you can see a little of it on this speaker.
I can see that. Yeah.
Crane Song Avocet. We'll look at that closely. Wonderful. If you'd like. And the great thing about what Dave Hill does, and he intuitively knew what to do from the beginning. He didn't have to read any of my articles. He has it set so you can calibrate it so that 0 dB on the monitor represents a calibrated level. And what I began to discover is that when I was mastering, when you're recording, if someone plays louder, you turn down the recording gain. When you're mastering, if it sounds louder, you turn down the monitor. And what I discovered is a kind of a linear relationship between the RMS level and the position of the monitor. And it was quite direct. So as I started to produce more pop recordings or rock recordings, as their level came up and the monitor came down to in the beginning, at least until we reached stupid loud, there was a kind of a direct 1 dB relationship. The louder the master got, the more I had to turn the monitor down, and I reached a point where I could say, well, if Star Wars on home theater comes up at 0 dB on my control, and it reaches a certain RMS level, and then Nirvana comes up to a level that's 6 to 8 to 9 dB hotter than the Star Wars recording, I have to turn down the monitor number of dB. And so it became the K system in the sense that you have a calibrated monitor, you set it to approximately where you'd like it to land for the music that you're mastering, and it will automatically fall in on its level or loudness. And so they're interrelated. Now, the more you compress, the more you limit, it's not exactly a dB per dB relationship, but they come close. So when I come in and I'm going to master today, if I'm doing a piece of hard rock, I'll come down and I'll shoot for it to work in my studio at -10, and I'm starting off right away. It's kind of like if you go into the recording studio, you don't know where you're going, and you're going to record a group. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew where to set your monitor control? And if you have a calibrated monitor and you know that if your VU meters are, in the case of a recording studio that has VUs, are going to be coming up close to 0 VU and you're recording rock, you can preset your monitor and close your eyes and not even use the meter. And that's all related to the K system.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Bob. That's brilliant. Okay, so tell us as well. So I know that you're part of AES, and so you have an up and coming AES streaming loudness recommendation. So what's your role on the committee, and what progress are you currently making with AES at the minute in that particular field?
Excellent. Well, I'm co-chair with Dave Bialik of the Streaming Loudness Subcommittee, which contains close to 90 members. And I can report that after a year, I'm in the drafting group of 8. You put 8 engineers in a room and everyone has their own idea of what to say and what to write. So you can imagine that for every word in the paper, which is a revision of a paper that I actually chaired, I don't remember how many years ago at this point. For every word in the paper, we went over every word and every phrase. Yeah. And we finished that drafting in December and passed it on. Mary, I'm wondering if you can, excuse me.
Sorry?
Bring me a glass of cold water. Yeah. It's great to have a camera person here who can go out of the room and get a glass of water. All right. So then in January, we started to pass the draft document to the 90-member larger group who picked their nits on every phrase and suggestions. And yesterday, we had a meeting with Spotify.
Okay.
Who really, really loved what it was that we came up with and had largely positive comments. And in areas where they thought they were differing, we showed them that actually they were the same, but we're reading it wrong. So we need to go back to the drawing board, make sure that we write this more clearly so that the streaming services, which is who we're aiming at, Apple, Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, plus Qobuz, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, they all are in this committee.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we're aiming to have something. Now, it's a recommendation. They don't have to follow it. But because of the increased popularity of it, we're hoping that it will gain ground. And I hadn't expected to talk about this first. I thought we would maybe do a tour of the studio, but I could give you a little preview of what my input, one of my inputs. Oh, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you. Could you?
It's such a baby.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary. You know, there's still that 1.2 kilohertz ringing comes and goes. It's gone now, but it comes and yeah.
I'll sit back from my mic a little bit. There we go.
Is that what it is?
Maybe.
You have a resonance. Yeah, there's a resonance between your face and the microphone. So what I can do is show you a little preview of a feature that we're trying to promote in the paper. And
sure.
Let me share my screen. I have to share. What screen am I going to share? Hold on. I don't know how to share. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. Instead of I don't want to take a risk. Instead of sharing my screen, Mary hit the still button on there.
Still?
Yeah, it says still. Okay, so
excellent. Right, I'll put you on the main screen, Bob. 1 sec. I'll just remove me off for a minute.
Excellent. Okay, so I don't have a cursor. Oh, I don't have a cursor on that still, so you're just going to have to pretend that there's a cursor going. And the first, what we're going to do is demonstrate that album normalization is almost artificial intelligence. It's something that I discovered. And you'll see that why we are pushing album normalization. And maybe if my friends from Spotify are listening, they'll see that maybe they should do album normalization all the time, like Tidal is doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at two different genres. On the left, concentrate on the first 4 bars. Can you read that the first song is a loud Beatles song?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay. Oh, you had the switch. Okay. So everybody can read that, and you can see that there are 12 bars on the screen. And
yep.
Yeah, you don't. Okay, fine. I won't ask you things to interrupt because it keeps shrinking and expanding. Okay, so what we're going to demonstrate is how album normalization works in a good streaming player. And let's pretend that we have a playlist with a rock album by the Beatles and a big band album by Frank Sinatra. They couldn't possibly be more different. Well, I'm sure there's other differences. We could have hip hop, we could have classical music, but this is a pretty good example that everybody knows. Now, when there's no normalization, when you just play these randomly, what happens is, because of the way it's recorded, the Beatles album sounds louder than the Sinatra in the playlist. Or if you put, in the old days, if you had if you had 2 CDs and you shuffle played them, you'd have to turn your volume control up to play the Sinatra and down to play the Beatles. Now, Rich, if at any point you have a question, just interrupt, because I'm trying to explain this and I want to make sure that the audience understands this. Now, why is it that the Beatles album is so much louder than the Sinatra album? And it has to do with compression. In the case of the first 4 bars, you see that the loud song by the Beatles, then the soft song by the Beatles, the loud song on the Sinatra album, and the soft song all have the same peak level. That's the top of the yellow bar. But their loudnesses, as represented by the dashed gray lines, are all, somewhat different. The loud song by the Beatles, that's the first bar under section A, is at a certain loudness. And the Beatles soft song is softer, and in fact there's a little more headroom for peaks. That's why the yellow section of the soft song is so much bigger. That's headroom for peaks. But notice that the second and third bar have exactly the same loudness. The loud song on the Sinatra album is no louder than the soft song on the Beatles album. Well, that ain't fair, is it? And the soft song on the Sinatra album is even softer. So played in the same playlist without normalization, these 4 songs don't work together. These 2 albums don't work together. Okay, now we'll move over to letter B, the 4 middle bars, okay? And this is the kind of normalization that has been going on in a lot of applications and streaming applications. This is called track normalization. The thing is that with track normalization, all the songs are made to be the same loudness. The Beatles' loud song is just as loud as the Beatles' soft song, so it breaks the artist's intent, and the soft song sounds way too loud. The Sinatra loud song, sure, it's made just as loud as the Beatles' loud song. I guess that's a triumph. But the Sinatra soft song is also made just as loud as all the other songs. And guys, this is compression. I don't know if you thought about it, but that track normalization is compression. Bringing up the soft songs is compression. It not only breaks the artist's intent, it compresses the artist's intent. So if you have a streaming service that you love and they're kind of doing track normalization or mixing it with album normalization, you should make a request. We want album normalization. And that's what the far right-hand set of 4 bars represents. Let's look at the last 4 bars. And I say that this feels just right. The Loud Song by the Beatles, as you can see, has been brought down from full peak level. The song that kind of wins on peaks is the Sinatra, the 3rd bar there on the last, next to the last bar on the right, because that's, well, it's not up to full peak level either, but at least it does have the highest peak level of this group of 4. But it's the loudness that counts. Now the Beatles loud song and the Sinatra loud song are the same loudness, okay? And the Beatles soft song, it turns out, in this example, is at the same loudness as the Sinatra soft song. So everybody wins. And you can make a multiple playlist in general with different genres. I don't care if it's jazz, hip hop, rock, pop. They will go together with album normalization. So your playlist, you don't have to revert to track normalization in part of your playlist. The whole playlist can be album normalized no matter how you shuffle it. You can use the album normalization level. There are some exceptions. I don't want to take your time in this program. Maybe I will write a kind of an essay on it at some point, and describe where it goes wrong. It's not full artificial intelligence, but it works pretty well on about 90% of albums.
That's incredible, Bob. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. My question, not really a question, but I think what I picked up really from that is the fact that that's phenomenal, because I know that I listen to music, or my other half, we listen to music in our house. And as you said, you've got a Sinatra song or you've got a Beatles song, and literally you reach for the volume control, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can actually have everything normalized, that's incredible. I love that. It's so
album
good.
normalized.
Album normalized. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. So good. Bob, let's do this. Can you show us your studio? I think a lot of people are really excited to see your gear.
Thank you.
Good with you?
Yeah, I'm ready for that. Okay. Now, since you made me wear headphones, I have to pull the headphone cable, and we'll drag that over here and move the chair. This is unrehearsed, folks. Okay.
So excited for this.
So, let's take a look at some of the analog gear in my rack. And we'll start with this wonderful, I'm going to use adjectives now. I'll get even with you, Rich.
Go for it.
This wonderful Pendulum Audio ES8. It's a variable mu compressor. It's no longer made, and I'm very glad that it still works and that I still have it, because it's pretty transparent for a variable mu, because it only has one tube per channel, and also a transformer. So, and it has a very warm color, which in the analog domain sounds just wonderful on certain material. Obviously, if I sent it something that was very thick and muddy, it wouldn't be the best choice. But that's why I have about 6 compressors in my racks. Okay, because each one is different. And below this, we have my custom blender that I built, and it allows me to mix the dry and the wet, and there's also an OTL for an output transformerless. So that means the transformer is in. I have a pair of Cinemag transformers in here, and I helped design it. The circuit board was designed by Steve Ferlat, who's a pretty well-known guy. But I assembled it and added a bunch of these relays so that I could insert and take out. When the mix button is out, it's totally hardwire bypassed. So I could compare out and in like that, totally hardwire bypassed. So it's always in, so to speak, in series. It's not, well, it's a parallel compressor, so parallel blender, but it's interfaced with the pendulum. And the way I like to work is having the dry and the wet be adjustable in 1 dB steps. So if I want to have a lot of the wet, I turn the wet up. I think I want to have a little more contribution from the compressor, or just a hair, come up a dB. That's the way I think, and that's the way I work. Now, the next item in the rack is the marvelous, wonderful Mazalek MEA2. It's very, very precise, stepped frequency. It's set right now, the high shelf is set right now to 27 kilohertz. And you think, well, only dogs can hear that. And that's true, but the curve is very, very, very gentle. So it produces a very sweet shelving character that goes all the way down to 10 kilohertz or 9 or 8. I haven't looked at it in a while. And for boosting or cutting up to, in this case, 8 dB boost and up to 8 dB cut in half dB steps for the most part. So that's very precise. Wow. And it works out very well. And each band can be set to shelving, which I rarely use except on the high end and the low end. But you could have 4 shelves if that works out well for you. But 4 bands is not enough for a lot of mastering, so I might supplement it with another equalizer, either analog or digital. Okay, so that's the that part of the rack. And now let's keep going around to the left side of the rack. We should have dance music going while I'm moving.
We should, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so this next piece is by that wonderful Polish design group, Better Maker. And they came up with a name. What the heck, it makes things sound better. It is a digitally controlled analog equalizer. Now, if the Mazalek is warm, the Better Maker is much closer to neutral. It's not completely neutral. It has a little character, which is hard to describe, but it's suitable for a lot of things. And what I like about it, what everybody likes about it, is that it's programmable. So there's a plugin that interfaces with this, so you could have a different EQ for each song in your album, and you could remember those and set them up. So I don't have to have a recall sheet for the Better Maker. And then, so this is my third equalizer. Just below it is the Elysia X filter Mastering edition, and I was the first one to get this made. What I designed, that's why this says BK Mastering Edition, but it's exactly the same as the Mastering Edition anybody else can buy, but it was very nice and sweet of Alicia to put BK on there. And I said, please, you don't have to put BK on, because I just told you what I thought it needed. We got more. We got a fully balanced output. Whereas the standard version has an unbalanced output without that much headroom. We got 0.3 dB step controls, which was very important, I think, for mastering, and a maximum range of plus or minus 5 dB. And this is the most transparent of the three equalizers. You really couldn't tell it's there when you put it in, except, of course, if it's boosted or cut. Then the next guy below that is the famous API 2500, which definitely has a sound. It's the API compressor that has probably been used on, I wouldn't be surprised if it's been used on more rock records than you could count, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I use it frequently when I'm looking to get, to help me get an aggressive quality. And then below that is a piece that we thought in the industry thought was discontinued forever, but it was, the company got resurrected recently by the gentleman named Eric, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'll just say Eric, who has resurrected Animod. And this is their most famous piece, the Animod ATS1, Analog Tape Simulator. And to me, it sounds so authentic that the only thing I'm missing is the smell of oil and the squeak of brakes. It's that good, Rich. And it sounds, in my opinion, better than any analog simulator in plug-in form.
That's incredible.
And so they resurrected it. Yeah, he resurrected it. They had 3 years of back orders, and recently he did a run of 25 boxes, and they all sold to those previous people who wanted them. So it's still a popular piece. Yeah, still a popular piece. They can't do wow and flutter like some of the plugins could simulate, but I don't need wow and flutter.
No.
I just want high frequency saturation. And below it is my mastering transfer console from Dutch Audio, and I can insert each. You can see here I can insert each analog piece in the chain. And I have one more analog piece than the number of inserts that are available in this 1U rack size. But the last thing I want to do is get more rack space. I'm trying to stay acoustically, have a very small interference pattern. As you, Mary, if you could zoom out, you can show the world that the rack is really small and very low down and does not interfere with the acoustics. So I don't think it's a big sacrifice for me to have two devices on, you can go back to close-up if you want, Mary, to have two devices on one button, because the bypass button on those two devices is hardwired itself. And it has a lot of features, and I have a wet-dry mixer that Jeff DeGans, who is the designer for Dutch Audio, put in for me, and all that good stuff.
What, okay. Bob?
What,
why do you have your racks? I think I think you may have mentioned this to me before. Why do you have your racks so low down compared to a lot of people?
Acoustic, absolutely acoustics. Yeah, I measure and I listen, and the acoustic shadow of this rack is very, very low, so that the sound from the speakers gets to my ears with as little or no interference as possible.
Amazing.
It's the first criterion that I have.
Yep.
I look at a mix room, maybe I'm looking at your room, I don't know, where guys have their video monitors sitting on the table vertically. Even in my mix room, my video monitors are laid down almost flat to the desk.
Yeah.
And with just enough of an angle to see. And it's all calculated for the best sound possible, as little interference between, as few reflections as possible between the loudspeaker and your ears. And you hear better. I mean, I want to make very tiny adjustments and be able to hear their effect. So let's move over to this table. And, oh, great. Nice shot, Mary. This is the remote control for the TC Electronic System 6000. Now, what I like to say, because this hasn't been officially declared obsolete, but it really is. They can't make it anymore because the Motorola chips that are the same chips that were used in the first DigiDesign system Motorola discontinued the chip, which is a fixed point DSP processor. And that left TC and a number of companies in the lurch. What the heck are they going to do? And I am pleased to announce that finally, after maybe like 5 or 6 years since they, got pressured to do it, TC has moved 4 or 5 of their most popular algorithms that are in the System 6000 to plugins, because that's the trend. You see that in the Vice processors. I used to have 3 Vice compressors in that right-hand rack. Now, a company who you may have heard of called SoftTube has produced replicas of the code, but in plugin language of the Vice processors, and TC had to, in their case, painstakingly hand code each and every step into floating point language, because there is no translator, there's no porting. So they hand ported these precious algorithms that could have been lost. And the 2 that I am most in love with are the VSS4, which is a fantastic stereo reverb, which I don't use reverbs that much in mastering, but it happens. But I do use reverbs in mixing, and the VSS4 next to the Bricasti and sometimes the Altaverb 7 and a few others that I'm aware of are among the best reverbs in the world. And now you can have that VSS4 algorithm in your mix, as many instances as your CPU can handle. So please stay alive for me until I copy all the presets that I have in this box, which originally cost me $13,000, Rich.
Wow, that's incredible, Bob.
Okay, yeah. And the other algorithm is the MD4, which is a wonderful parallel compressor when you set it up in parallel mode. Yeah. Okay. Am I talking too much, or we're heading towards?
Carry on, sir. Carry on.
All
It's
right.
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, carry on. Okay, this is the TC Electronic Clarity M loudness meter, which I recently bought just because I find that the hardware is easier to deal with than the software, because I don't have to worry about putting a plug-in anywhere in my mixer. I just whatever is coming out of my DAW is patched directly into this loudness meter. Okay, and then, oh, what's that doing there? Oh, I have got to check that, but that'll be another day. Okay, so we're still we can still move. My God, I'm tethered to these wires.
Are you okay
All
getting
right,
around the studio there, Bob?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Mary,
Awesome.
we're going to look at the Avocet over here. Okay.
Talk a little about it while I.
Okay. I'll just do a little song and dance here. Okay. So this is the Crane Song Avocet, a monitor controller. It is surround. I have, believe it or not, 8 channels of discrete D to A converters hooked up to this that are the Avocet Quantum DACs. And the calibrated control here, listen for the relays. Do you hear the clicks?
Yep. Yeah,
No?
I can hear them. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, so this is a digitally controlled analog monitor controller. So there's only one discrete op amp and relays in front of and after it that control resistors that are in front of the op amp for attenuation. So it's as clean and transparent a signal path as you can imagine. And I have this calibrated, like I said earlier, to the K system. So I know what 0 dB means. I know what -9 means. And so no matter what recording I'm working on, what type of music I'm working on, I can preset it and get in the ballpark 1 dB or 2 dB of where I want my master to be. But it's not like I'm married to that decision. If I listen to the music and I find it's not responding the way I would like, I'm not afraid to master it louder or softer than that. But this will help me get in the ballpark of what I'm looking for faster. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just set your monitor where you want to set it before you master, rather than while you're working and
Absolutely.
know where that is? Yeah, that's the K system. Okay, and the last piece we're going to talk about is new for me. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can tell by the size of it. Which camera are we on, Mary?
Hold on. I'll get there.
Okay, sorry. Wow, nice shot, Mary. This is a new piece called the Whitestone P331 tube loading amplifier. It has 2 6S and 7s inside, and everything is digitally controlled and repeatable. So if I want to increase the loading on the tubes, I go click, a little more. I want a more saturation in 1 dB steps. It was built for Bob in the sense it was what I would really like to have for control. I get the best of both worlds, tubes and digital control. And it's a very sweet. It has nice depth, and it can be set for either very clean or very fat or bloomy. But it is a subtle box. It's not something that will slam you over the head unless you really push it, and then it doesn't quite perform as well as I'd like. But it's really added a nice little enhancement for many recordings that I've used it on so far. That's the short tour, guys.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Bob. Can you show everybody?
Oh, below that, sorry, the headphone amps that are underneath there?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bob. It's the hand-drawn chart from 1941 on your wall, showing the relation between musical pitch,
frequency, and frequency and pitch. Yeah, that's the Carnegie chart, which I found the original of and scanned it and we give it away free with each copy of Mastering Audio
Fantastic.
with the book.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so this is the microphone. Okay. Ooh.
You okay?
You know how old this mic is? This
No.
this mic is I got this Sony microphone in 1979. That's how old this lavalier is, and I could be abusing it. This little tiny thin cable.
You gonna show them your speakers or not?
Oh yeah, as long as we're there, let's show you guys the speakers.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's have a look. Wonderful.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, so taller than me. This is the Dynaudio M5P mastering quality monitor, and they throw a beautiful, big, spacious image. The previous speakers that I had, the Revels, were excellent, but the image that they throw is much smaller, and there's something wonderful about having an image that's big and tall. Does it make me master better? No, but it gives me more pleasure. And who wants to sit around for 8 hours a day making music without the pleasure of listening in high fidelity? Do you want to learn a little bit about the principle of these speakers?
Yeah, please. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Can't say no. All right. So we have 2 tweeters. Each tweeter is at a slightly different frequency range, and there's a purpose for that. The other benefit is the 2 tweeters give you more headroom, but somebody might say, well, don't they phase? And by being at slightly different frequencies, they are calculated to do something which I'll explain next. And then we have 2 mid-range drivers also, and you see that they're symmetrical. And then we have 4 woofers, 2 up on top and 2 on the bottom. And it's a very complex crossover because they implement DDC, the Dynaudio Directivity Control. By using a slight offset in frequency between these pairs, each half of the pair, I should say, the loudspeaker gains a directivity so that you don't get reflections off the ceiling or the floor. So Dynaudio claims 70% of reflections are eliminated by DDC. And then over here on the bottom, I've got my JL subwoofer. Again, I like overkill. What can I say? That subwoofer, using a crossover that I designed in the digital domain, extends the low frequency response of the big speaker down to 15 hertz. It's 3 dB down at 15. Yeah, it shakes the room, and I love it when we want to demonstrate. I have a recording that I made of the shuttle launch at Cape Canaveral, and that recording goes down to 8 hertz, which nobody can, well, some people can reproduce, which when I was at the launch would vibrate your chest, literally. You could feel that. But you don't get the feel here, but at least we can get extension down to 15 hertz. And we can't play it as loud as it was at Cape Canaveral either, but I have a lot of headroom and it's pretty darn loud. Anyway, so I needed that low frequency extension because these speakers, quote unquote, only go down to 27 hertz. Oh, how sad. So we extend from 20, the crossover point is actually as steep at 60, but we extend that down to the subs, and everything is time aligned. Okay.
That's amazing, Bob.
Now,
Bob, your subs. Why are your subs to the left and the right?
well, they can't be on top. How can you be in any place if you can't be in the same place? You have to give somewhere. Give somewhere.
I know a lot of studios, they tend to have the subs in the center of the room. So,
but these are stereo subs.
Ah, okay, got you. That makes more sense.
Yeah. So this is literally a full range system.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
It's all part of a surround system, because if you, I'll duck down, Mary, if you, you'd have to show it on this camera. Oh, she's busy focusing on the side. Stand by for a second.
Okay, what do you want me to
switch to camera 1 and show the Lipinski in the back?
The Lipinski over there.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let me switch to you.
On that camera, you won't be able to see it with the other camera.
I know. I'm going to have people get entertained by looking at you while I get entertained finding the Lipinskis.
That's a Lipinski there.
I know.
Wonderful.
Oh, I get it.
This is live. This is what happens when it's live.
Yeah. I'm going to sing a little. Okay. Can you even see it?
Well, let's turn the light up.
Yeah. I don't know. Wow.
Okay.
There it is. You can see it barely. That little gray, whoops.
Yeah.
Over the video monitor. We lost it, Mary. We had it a second ago.
You can see it. John, I'll tell you, I'll come off the stream 1 sec. Hold on.
Oh.
Hold on.
Oh, but you had it before. It was brighter. Oh, I see it kind of, sort of, but it looks kind of dark on
there.
On it. Anyway, that's the center speaker. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different models of loudspeakers in my system, and you might think, aren't you supposed to have everything matched? Well, but I have a very sophisticated digital correction system, and you can't tell. It's just cohesive. So everything, the frequency responses all get together. It's okay, Mary. We don't need to see the Lipinski. You see, on this one, it's really dark. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
That's amazing. Thanks, Bob.
So yeah. That was the center speaker.
Fantastic. So, could you tell us why you prefer using analog when you're doing your mastering compared to digital, or why would you prefer to use digital instead of analog?
Okay, how much time do we have? All right. Boy, that speaker looks kind of on an angle, because good thing you changed cameras, Mary. But they're all straight up and down. All right. When I'm looking for a little bit of color, I lean towards analog. When I'm looking for more transparency, I lean towards plugins and digital processing. And you can have too much of one and too much of the other. So maybe I'll use a hybrid of both in a mastering session. How about that?
Fantastic.
And these analog processors don't have any aliasing, while plugins that do analog simulation and saturation have some small degree of aliasing. Now, the manufacturers are going to listen to this talk by me and say, well, our aliasing is down 40 dB or down 50 or 60 and we oversample. I haven't heard yet a digital plugin that sounds as transparent as the analog version. But you do lose something going out of the D to A converter and into the A to D. And it's getting better and better. But what I hear sometimes is a little bit of fuzziness. that could be the residual of the aliasing. But one of my favorite plugins, actually at this point, two of them, either the Leapwing Audio Dyne 1 or the TC Electronic MD4, I don't worry about aliasing on either one because I use them in parallel mode. And if mixing doesn't cause aliasing, the artifacts of compression cause aliasing. So if you don't have the compressor at full level in the mix, you're going to hear, and it's mixed down 5 dB, 10 or 15, it's going to reduce any distortion due to aliasing by that same amount. So there's a kind of a fringe benefit to doing parallel compression, is that if there's any aliasing, it'll be less.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. So, for example, let's say that you've got a brand new mastering engineer and they're asking you how best to work in their home studio, because I know, I'm sure you're fully aware, a load of kids out there, they're just starting off maybe with a pair of headphones.
Kids?
Yeah, completely. Or, 18, 19-year-old students, possibly, starting out at university.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So how would they go about getting the best sound? What advice would you give to a kid starting out at home?
Well, the first piece of advice I can say is get the best monitoring you can afford. Now, bass response is expensive, generally. Yeah. So maybe the best monitor that they can afford goes down to 80, 70, 60 if they're lucky, but you don't get the fundamentals. So what is a poor guy to do? And the answer is sitting on your head. Yeah. I have a client who can only afford a certain amount, and whenever for his monitoring, and whenever I got a mix from him, the bass instrument was all over the place. Sometimes it was a little loud, sometimes a little soft, sometimes it was boomy at the bottom, sometimes it was cool. Okay, so very good client of mine doing country music and Americana. Okay. I suggested to him to get a pair of headphones at the time, which were very, very good and no longer made. That's so common with headphones. The next year, every Sony model that's ever been made is guaranteed to be discontinued in less than a year. Yeah, I swear. Or the next number is out. Yeah, I have. What model Sony headphones do you have? It's the one with the EXG after it, and it's the same number as yours. Does that mean it's different or the same? Anyway, I recommended to him the Oppo PM3. PM3 headphones, and they have very linear bass, surprisingly, and they were about $400. So he could afford them, and during his mixing, he switches between his speakers and his headphones to check the bass. And you know what? The next mixes that he sent me for the next album were spot on.
Wow. No way, that's incredible. So your advice really would be for a kid or for anyone starting out in mastering, no matter what their age, or mixing. Or just mixing. But how about mastering? What about if there's a kid that wants to learn how to do mastering at the age of 18, 19, or anybody that wants to start learning how to do mastering? Is it possible? Is it achievable under headphones, or would you say it's almost impossible to master on just?
Well, not to rely on them totally. Now, the LCD models that you have are very good, but compared... Now, do you remember how much they set you back in dollars or
sterling? Sterling's about $1,400.
Okay, so that's probably close to $2,000.
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
What?
The Odyssey LCD MX4 is fan-fucking-tastic.
Wow. Okay.
And it's around half the price of the LCD4s that I have here, and I do have a pair of the MX4s, and I really could endorse them. as a good starting point. I'm sorry, I can't endorse the LCD X's for mastering. They're a
No,
little
sure.
too colored. I think so, yeah.
That's
But
amazing.
the fours, either the MX4 or the LCD4. And if they're on a real budget, the LCD ones, they're not bad. The bass is a little light. You could maybe do a touch of EQ.
Yeah.
But I don't recommend mastering exclusively in headphones. God, there's so many reasons. Excuse me. You want me to just give you about a half a dozen reasons why headphones are no good for mastering?
We'd love to know, Bob.
Okay, all right. Stereo image, exaggerated. Okay? When you listen to near field monitors, it's like listening to a pair of big headphones. Well, how about if you have headphones? That's listening to a pair of big headphones. So the stereo image is exaggerated. And you tend to mix or master small because it sounds big enough on the phones. The second thing is the ratio of the direct sound to the ambience is much higher. And I ran into that problem when I was doing mixing for Chesky Records, and we started out, I was using my Stax headphones and sitting in a corner of the room with all the custom mixing gear. And David and Steve Guttenberg were sitting in front of loudspeakers. And I had a piano. The high end of the piano was on the left, and the bottom end of the piano was in the middle of the soundstage. And whenever a piano solo came up, I would cheat the level of the piano just a bit. Now, 99% of the sound or 90% of the sound was coming from a main mic. And this was from a pair of spot mics just to give a little touch of help in an acoustic recording. So every time I brought the piano up, they were saying, more. So I had to bring it up more because the piano was right in my ear and it sounded loud enough. Okay. And that's when we decided I'm going to have to sit in the middle in front of the speakers, and you guys are going to have to sit behind me like Larry, Moe, and Curly and make, so that I can mix while the performance is going on. And this is a live performance, so we're recording direct to 2-track.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Bob. With your room.
So there's the direct to reflected sound. There's the stereo image. There's the transient response, because a pair of transducers on your ear has a higher transient response, and the farther away the transducers, the worse the transient response. So you tend to compensate for speakers, maybe give them a little more high end or this or that, while the headphones don't need it. So be cautious. Yes, sir.
That makes absolute sense. Thanks so much for that, Bob. Yeah, so that's great. With your room, how did you come to the measurements of your rooms? I know that you've got your room is on a slope. Am I right in saying this? So it's like a really high ceiling.
Yeah, Mary, can you show the cathedral ceiling back there with that, or with this
one?
Okay, stand by.
Okay, I'll come off of the stream so you can see.
Okay, the front of the room
Let me
is.
see if I can be making the ISO a little lighter, a little darker, so that it can darken the roof.
Okay, focus too, Mary. It's a little soft. Okay. Okay, so that's the front of the room. It's about 4 meters high, 12 feet. And this is the back of the room, between 7 and 8 meters high. So it's a cathedral ceiling, okay? And the air conditioning vents that you just saw a piece of are so distant that you don't hear the air conditioning noise as well. So the room is potentially a little too live, but I have a carpet with mat, and for flutter echo I have these soft Sonexes on the sides so that we don't hear any flutter echo. And the reverberation time with respect to frequency is not yet perfect, but it's really good, really good. So I don't know if I want to mess with that. And behind where I sit, where Mary is sitting, are 3 active traps from PSI, the AVAAs. And so that keeps the bass response, the bass, there they are. Oh my God, there they are, sitting on the floor. Those are the active traps.
1 trap.
2 trap.
2 trap. Oh, it's being used for a stand right now.
Yeah, it's holding a little video monitor on it.
Video monitor.
And there you got feedback there.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. Up in the air and over the rim. All right. So the room is very big. It's about 4,000 cubic feet, if I remember correctly. And that helps. And the speakers are 9 feet from me where I sit. I do the measuring with Room EQ Wizard and also with an accurate convolver. And the room has been linearized. But you have to start with a really good room. If you try to equalize a bathroom, it's still a bathroom. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have to start with as good acoustics as possible, and they're as well controlled as I can, and then very tiny tweaks using this correction, which is also linear phase. So,
tell them how many times you do
how many
this
times do I align?
Align.
Oh, about 4, 5, 6 times a year I check the alignment.
Wow, so that's incredible. What about your diffusers as well? How did you choose your diffusers?
Oh, way up in the front there? That's kind of like an ego trip. Okay. What's going on? I mean, that is the wrong place to put diffusion, not behind the speakers where they are, but I have them up there because they look nice. No, I have them up there. Those are from GIK Acoustics. Yeah. They are very heavy, by the way. I had to have my handyman go up there and hang them for me. The Schroeder curve in the room is a little too far rolled off at the high end due to those very thick curtains that are in the front. Behind those curtains, there's more traps, by the way, bass traps. Anyway, so I thought, well, let's put some hard surfaces and the to offset for the curtains, and those diffusers have multiple hard surfaces because there's a surface on the side, on the front, whatever, if we were to get up close. So they're multiplying the number of hard surfaces in the room. Yeah.
That's incredible.
But they're not there to diffuse, though. Yeah. I can see why you're at the top of your game, Rich, because you make me feel good, man.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. I love GIK stuff as well. I've got a couple of prototypes behind me, and again, a couple of my friends said, go with GIK, and such a good company, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to do some wonderful designs,
and it's also wonderful that they can ship to the UK because that's really tough with a lot of things.
Very much so, absolutely. Bob,
and yes, sir.
No, you go.
No, go ahead. No, I don't know what I was going to say.
No, it's okay. You are a keen photographer. We've seen some of your wonderful photos on your Facebook page. How many years have you been taking photos for? One of my favorites that you've done maybe a few months ago was a skateboarder that you took a photo of.
Oh,
so
yeah.
What sort of photos do you enjoy taking?
I like insects and birds and landscapes. Now, Mary is a professional photographer.
Okay.
She has her certification. She is a certified professional photographer, and she's been doing portraits for years. And in our home, this is what I call a residential studio. of the highest grade. In our home, Mary has a residential photo studio on the other side of that wall, and she takes portraits in there. And how long have I been doing photography? Not as long as Mary. She's been doing. How long have you been doing? Come on, Mary. How long?
I don't know, 35 years. Maybe.
35 years she's been shooting. Yeah. I've only been shooting photos for 5 or 6 years at the most.
Maybe 3.
But we share our resources because we have 3 real high-end cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go out and shoot birds in the lovely Florida weather. And I recently shot motocross, and one of the motorcyclists came to me and said, can I have that photo? So I got $25 for it, and now I'm a pro.
Sorted. That's amazing. And I understand as well, talking to a friend, that you speak a couple of languages. Is that right? So you speak French and Spanish. Is that right?
French and Spanish. Yeah, I can't say totally fluent, but I'm pretty good at both. Good enough to give seminars and lectures in Paris and in Spain and in Mexico.
Fantastic. And how many years have you been speaking French and Spanish for?
Since French since 7th grade and Spanish since high school. And Mary speaks fluent Spanish. She was born in Colombia and South America, and so she has, we keep it up. We talk to each other in Spanish.
My grandmother, who's passed away now, but my grandmother was French. And she always said to me, she goes, you need to learn French. And I kept on saying, I'm English, I'll learn French eventually. And I never passed her up.
Oh, yeah?
I'm in my late 30s now, so I really need to learn, Bob. I need to learn some French and carry it on in the family.
Et tu peux prendre une vacance à Paris et en jouir. On ne dit pas en jouir. Est-ce que c'est un mot? No?
Oui, it sounds good to me.
So Mary and I...
Passez très bien.
Merci. No, because Mary also speaks more languages than I speak. I speak French and Spanish. Mary majored in French in college, and we speak both in French and Spanish to each other. And she also has Portuguese.
Oh, fantastic! That's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Bob. Okay, so we're going to move on to a Q&A section. We've had lots of questions sent through.
Oh my God, all the patience. You guys have patience. Do you know what Portuguese children are called?
No, tell us.
Portugoslings.
Are they? I didn't know that.
No. Come on. I
was going to Google it afterwards and go, is that true?
Let's do the questions and answers.
Let's go with the questions. Let's go for it. Okay, so we've got many for you here, Bob. Okay, I'll just go through a few with you. So we've got a wonderful engineer called Manon Grandjean, who was one of our guests a few weeks ago. She was asking with the Better Maker.
Doesn't Manon speak French?
She is French, yes. She's from Marseille.
Yeah. Excellent. Manon, comment ça va?
So Manon,
je suis enchanté.
Fabulous. Manon's asked you...
Better Maker,
yeah. So have you tried the limiter?
No, not neither that. Don't they have a compressor too?
Yes. Yeah, they do indeed.
No. Does she have it? Has she tried it?
Does she have it? We can... she'll be able to respond to that. I think she's still on the live stream, so she should respond to us soon in relation to that. So, yeah, Manon, if you're listening, if you can give Bob a response back, that'll be fantastic. Thank you very much. And so we've got some more questions coming through here, Bob. So let's have a look. Question: which digital correction system and digital Xover are you currently using?
Accurate. Spelled Acourate. You can look it up, and it's for me. I spent a year going back and forth between my analog crossover to my subs and a Meyer EQ on the subs and accurate. And after a year, I decided it was just that it's transparent, doesn't take away from any of the warmth of the system. And so that's what I settled on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bob. Another member is asking, I'm currently redoing my mastering room and about to be stuck in testing period where my room will be untreated. Between the testing for ASC, and you can probably guess where this is going, Bob, and the wait for attack wall to arrive, any suggestions on how best to survive the gap in a non-treated room?
Yes, Danielle, it's time for you to put headphones on.
Done. There you go. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's have a look, see what other questions we've got coming through as well. We've just had some comments about your Mazalek, your amazing Mazalek outboard.
So you know what we missed? We missed the Mazalek compressor expander. We missed everything on this wall over here. Mary, I'm going to move the stool out of the way and you can just point to it because that's the other Mazalek in the system. Oh, can you get to it with that?
Well, get in there.
No, it's all right.
While you entertain them with your little talk or whatever about the Mazalek, I'll be getting my shots. Which one is the Mazalek?
The black one.
Okay.
Amazing.
Okay, so right. This lovely piece is the Mazalek MLA4. Now, as soon as I heard that Leif Masses, who is the genius behind Mazalek, and the great thing about Leif is that he is, I would say he's a recording engineer as well as a designer. And that's a 1-2 punch because he knows what people need. And as soon as I found out, oh my God, it has this feature and that feature and that feature, I have to have it because it's kind of like my dream piece. So let's, take a look at, or at least describe what it can do. There are 3 bands. Okay, it's a 3-band compressor expander. So each band can be turned into either an upward expander or turn the ratio to 1-to-1, which would be out, or a downward compressor. And I said, oh my God, I've been waiting for this for years. And so that's the piece that I would recommend to a lot of people. It can't do aggressive really well, but it can do just about anything else. Okay, and below it is something that's probably going to leave the mastering room and go into the mix room, is an ADL for Anthony DeMario Labs. It's an LA2A stereo clone, the same design as the LA2A, but I find it to be a little bit slow for mastering with that particular optical characteristic. So I did use it once on a master, but I haven't used it successfully on any other master. So you were asking about Mazalek, and I just wanted to make sure that people didn't forget the other Mazalek in my system.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. Thank you so much for that. So that you pop back round. How's your mic doing? Is your mic doing all right at the minute?
I can't hear it, so it better be good.
It's great. It's sounding great. How old is that mic, did you say?
1978 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's still going. That's fabulous.
Yeah. It's a Sony ECM 50.
It's an ECM 50. Fantastic. Right. So some more questions for you here, Bob. So we've got our friend Lars from Copenhagen. Lars is asking, a few days ago, I saw a 13-year-old interview with you, Bob, where you were trying to teach digital distributors to use 24-bit. How do you see the
Yep.
future now?
Well, the big problem now is very much the same. And the dilemma that I have, or that we have right now, is okay, Apple Digital Masters requests, if they don't enforce it, they're not the music police, but Apple has certain guidelines that they recommend, and one of those guidelines is to keep the true peak level from overshooting. Okay.
Yeah.
So for ADMs, which used to be called MFIT, Mastered for iTunes, we would inspect the output of the codec and make sure that it doesn't exceed 0 dB true peak. Now, with the loudness race, and with the capability of compact disc, our CD masters might be a little bit hotter, not by much, maybe a dB or so, than the Apple Digital Masters, which those are the 16-bit 44.1, whereas the ADMs are either, they all end up at 44.1K once Apple puts it into their encoders. So we can, mastering engineers can send them a 44 or an 88 or a 96, and I've never sent them a 192, and then they'll store those on their servers for the day that they eventually go to high res. But I prefer to do the sample rate conversion myself, and so I will send them a 2444 at a Apple level. But the great thing about those, which, and I'm going to name names, CD Baby will not accept or recognize, is that the Apple Digital Masters are perfectly suited for Spotify and so many of the other lossy coded services. So the dilemma is, if I send through my client, of course, who has to do it, the 2444 to CD Baby, they say no. Send us the 1644. But the 1644 is at the higher level and would cause overshoot. So what are we going to do? So if I can twist CD Baby's arms to take the 2444, it'd be so much easier for us to manage and just have a single master to send for streaming everywhere, because it won't overshoot on Spotify either.
Perfect. Thanks
so
so
that's
much.
the main reason to go 24. Yeah.
Let's go down that route. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Bob. So we have, Manon has, let's have a look, replied. Manon says, merci, Bob. No, I don't have the limiter. But
De rien,
she says, no.
Pardonne-moi pour avoir interrompu et corrigé par ma mari, mais je suis
ma
femme. Mais de toute façon, je suis enchanté de t'encontrer. Et quelle était la question encore? What was the question again?
Yeah, sure, I'll get that. I'm personally, Bob, I'm going to have to go on Google Translate or contact Manon to ask her what you've just said. So no, I don't have the limiter, says Manon, but tempted by it. So thought to ask if you tried it and what you thought of it. Also, after watching this, I'm going to get on the Animod train, she says.
Well, okay, the thing about the Animod is I don't use it every day, Manon. I may use it once a month or once every 2 months. So you have to decide, do I want tape saturation? And when are you going to use it? It comes in, the need for it comes every so often. Sometimes I want to take the highs down softly with it, or use it in conjunction with I want this, Mary. Use it in conjunction with the high frequency softening, maybe, of the Mazalek. It's kind of a specialty thing. But if you've used any tape saturation plugins and liked what they do, this Animod does even better. But you got to talk to them and get them to make it again, because the guy got really tired making 30 pieces and selling them, and I don't know if they have any more in stock.
Incredible. Thanks so much for that. Okay, so we've got another member. So forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but Jean-Marc. So Jean-Marc is asking, when is the next edition of your book, Mastering Audio, The Art and the Science, going to be released? So I know that we're on our third incarnation at the minute.
It's in the third edition.
Yeah.
The answer is, I don't know.
Okay.
I can't. I haven't been. I'm still working on notes for it, because the technology keeps moving forward, and I'm trying to get the book to stay current. And I'd prefer to wait until the AES streaming recommendations get ratified before we talk about a book, so that I can be the first book that comes out that talks about the new streaming recommendations.
Amazing. Thank you. And so we've got Jackson. So Jackson's asking, equipment maintenance, what tools are necessary for keeping analog gear up to spec?
How about 45 years of experience? Are you talking about tape machines? If it's tape machines, it's, each model of tape machine requires its own little tweaks. I recommend that you apprentice with a classic engineer and look at what he or she does to get into the gear. I'm able to debug tube gear to a great degree, but I'll often send it out. Usually it's a DC voltage or a blown tube. And what tools do you need? I have an oscilloscope, a fluke voltmeter, a FFT analyzer for noise and signal. I mean, every piece of gear here has its characteristics measured and put away, so that if the tubes start to go downhill, I can compare the distortion performance today against the distortion performance 3 years ago and see if we need new tubes and so on. But what tool? So in FFT analyzer, digital voltmeter, sine wave, and square wave oscillator, which can be in the digital domain in your DAW. These days you can find a way to generate sine waves and square waves. Definitely a voltmeter. I would say if you don't have a voltmeter to measure the levels in your studio, get one.
Incredible. Thank you. I've got a question for you. So one of our members has asked this question, and I'm actually working in the box as well. So that's primarily how I work. As I use an RME ADI2 Pro FS, and with a converter, and I'm in the box. It's just plugins.
I've heard that the ADI is very good. I've heard that ADI really boxes above its weight. And then you have Total Mix, which is a great feature that RME has. So lets you do patching and stuff. So what do you want to know about in the box recommendation?
So it's basically saying that, can you get a master as loud in the box as you can using outboard gear?
I don't play the loudness game. I don't participate. If somebody wants stupid loud and they come to me, then they're coming to the wrong guy. Send them to somebody else. And the answer to that isn't really relevant either, because above a certain level that the streaming services are going to turn it down. So what's the point there? Unless you're trying to impress a producer or a record label or get a job or make a mix that's louder because you're having a competition on that. There's a whole set of issues there. And the answer to that is, I think you can get it a little bit louder outside the box than inside.
Yeah.
But why? It
just makes no sense.
Do it. I know how to do it, and I can do it, but I Oh, that's why you wanted the water. Okay, because I don't, I just don't go there. I rarely go make something stupid loud.
I think that's prevalent to me. I hear it all the time when I'm listening to the radio, and I've talked to mastering engineer friends that do a lot of chart music, a lot of commercial music that's in the charts, in the top 20, for example, in the UK or in the States, wherever. And I know that, some of those mastering engineers, I'm sure you'll wince, Bob, but they're going up as high as like -8, -7 LUFS.
Yeah.
But from my understanding,
Which is 1 second, let me interrupt.
Sure.
That is between 7 and 9 dB hotter than the last master I just output.
Wow. And it's that is so interesting, because I know that I think a lot of people are, especially when they're maybe starting out mastering, or they're trying, like you said, trying to compete with other songs in the charts, they're thinking, oh, I just need to crank the song up louder. But from my understanding, that Spotify will still, they'll turn down that song. They'll turn it down to,
That's right.
I understand it. They turn it down to -14 LUFS, if I'm right in saying that.
Soon, if they, it's going to take a while for their ecosystem to be adapted, but they will go towards the new AES recommendation of -16.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Bob, I've asked you this question before, so this is coming from me, about color. So I know that a lot of people...
What? About who?
Color. Color in audio.
Okay.
So this is coming from me. So I really enjoy trying out different colors in audio. And I was wondering how you would describe your interpretation of color to other audio engineers.
Well, talking about sound character is a bit like describing sight to a blind man. So, we might talk for 30 minutes about color and colors, and at the end of it discover that we use the same word to mean something completely different. So I'm not sure what your question is leading towards. Are you saying what kinds of colors do I like and how do I use them in both mixing and mastering?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my question is the fact that with coloration, is that I've talked to other engineers about this, that I know on lots of forums that we all go on to, everyone is very much like, you need this piece of gear to do this to achieve this color, so this is really where I'm going with it, and instead my point is that if you can answer this will be fantastic, please, that when I talk to other engineers, we've all agreed really that every human being has got a different pair of ears and it perceives
that's part of it too.
Way.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done any research as to whether you and I sitting in the same room would agree about a particular color, but I certainly have my prejudices as to what kinds of colors I can create with the different tools that I have. But let me give you a little interesting secret.
Sure.
Both the TC Electronic MD4 and the Leapwing Dyne 1 can, in the digital domain, give you subtle changes in color with just a few movements of their knobs. So you don't necessarily, I can get, in many cases, the warmth I'm looking for just with that little parallel compressor with the first fader up 2 or 3 tenths of a dB and the second fader up a few tenths. And in fact, I provided presets to TC Electronic recently for their MD4. So you can have Bob's warm, Bob's fat, and Bob's clear just by loading the preset.
Amazing. That's so good. Thanks, Bob. So a couple more questions before we go, if that's okay with you, sir. So we've got another member saying, hi, Bob. So do you have a minute to talk about MS mastering?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, the one thing I actually learned from a great mastering engineer named Ian. Oh my God, I'm having a mental
Ian
block.
Shepherd?
So if you're watching, no, another Ian.
Not even
Okay.
No, Ian lives in Massachusetts, which is pointing out that MS manipulation is best done with a linear phase equalizer, so you don't shift the phase. But the degree to which I do any MSing is typically no more than a dB or dB and a half, or it couldn't really mess up the balance between vocal and instrumental, or that the mix engineer sent. So usually it's just a touch. Now, I'll give you some examples. The cymbals, which are on the side, say, are real bright and in the way, but the vocal is a little dull. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. But by taking the S channel, I can take the high frequencies down on the sides, soften the cymbals, and taking the M channel, I can raise, whether it is 5 kilohertz, 6, 7, 8, a little pinch to bring the presence up on the vocal. But warning, this changes the mix. It will bring the vocal up a little bit, and it will bring the level down of the cymbals. And so you have to listen to the mix, the original mix, and decide, is the cure worth the disease?
That's so good.
Okay.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks, Bob. And so I've got a question from another member. So do you see, this is an interesting one. So do you see shapes when you listen to sound?
Am I kinesthetic or whatever they call that? Hyperkinesthesia, psychoacoustical. The answer is no. I don't see shapes. But if I take melatonin at night, I get nightmares.
Yeah, I think that's a given. Thank you. Last question for you as well, Bob. So do you think, and this is a really interesting one, so I know that you've got some wonderful outboard gear that you use, and so do you think it's possible to achieve a good, I won't say great, but a good master in the box? Is it achievable?
Oh yeah. We were leading towards that earlier when we were talking about ear in the box. The answer is absolutely. So the question, yes, you can. So the question that arises is, why am I doing the analog? And it's a tiny, tiny polish. But I invented my case stereo processor to try and help to improve the depth. And you all know that that's a UAD plugin. Hint, hint. So it can get back some of the depth without using any distortion, whereas the analog gear uses its distortion characteristics. So what I find, as I said earlier, is that aliasing takes its toll. So I think that still today, maybe not 5 years from now or 10 years from now, but at this point today, I still give an edge to most of the analog stuff. But I'll tell you, there is a compressor by a company called Unisum, called Tone Boosters. It's called the Unisum, and I was a beta tester for it, and I was very impressed. And when I'm pressed against the wall and I have to work in the box, I'll go to the Unisum because it doesn't produce so many of these aliasing artifacts. So things are getting better. And so I'm doing a little polishing, a little subtle dimension and depth, and as a little more transparency and purity of tone. But and I like it. It's fun. That's the other thing,
Yeah, sure.
And so, you can do it. But I would be very careful and very selective and decide which simulators, analog simulators, if you're going for color, are as innocuous as possible. And I just gave you a couple of tricks there that you can do with either the Dyne 1 either the Dyne 1 or the MD4 to get color without any artifacts.
That's fantastic.
Just by that little touch of parallel compression subtly underneath. Because think, I mean, how much distortion does this Whitestone P331 have? Very, very low. Okay. And where does its color come from? Well, some of it is low-level distortion at different frequencies.
Yep.
Well, if you can add a little touch of that, and distortion is compression, by the way. So if you can add a little touch of that parallel compressor at, I don't know, -20, -30, -40, wherever you feel, push this fader up in the 5 kilohertz range just a little bit, underneath, way underneath in your mix, you'll get that little tiny sizzle underneath without any of the artifacts, and boom, color.
Perfect. So good.
No messy floors to mop.
No.
No.
Absolutely. So with last question from me as well, Bob. So when I'm mastering, I struggle because I'm in the box, like you said. So I struggle with saturation, and I struggle. And I know that you've got some wonderful gear that does amazing saturation with the stuff that you've got. And is there? I know we've talked about the Dyne audio. We've talked about the different plugins that you
mean the Dyne 1.
Dyne 1, sorry, my mistake. Dyne 1. So with the Dyne 1, that you can achieve fantastic results. Are there any saturated?
Well, it's not really, which is interesting. Okay. Well, UAD has all their tape machines, and I mean, I'm obviously associated with UAD, so you're not going to get a peep out of me to tell you which I prefer. Their tape machines are the ones that I have outside in the analog. So, but they are decent. Yeah, you can get them. You have to just watch out for artifacts. And I don't. Okay, but what could you do? I would try using a single band of high frequency compression. That's what I would do. But you're looking for that fuzz, a little bit of the extra harmonic stuff. And I think what in mastering we use that high frequency compression is so that we can have a clear present vocal, for example, but on the peaks it softens it. So you can push the high frequency EQ up a little bit, and then with dynamic EQ or high frequency compression, we can soften the high end and have our cake and eat it too. But I'm not I can't answer your question because I'm not expert. I don't do too much saturation in the box, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some great tools. You want to tell us what you use, and maybe I'll say, oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I've been using the black box.
I'm not familiar with it.
No,
I'm not familiar with it.
I think UAD.
Isn't that a copy of a analog device that does the same thing?
It is. Yeah, it is indeed. It's and I know that I believe it'll be Dirk from Plugin Alliance. So he's come up with a new version of the black box as well, and it sounds incredible. It sounds really good. So I've only started to play with it. So maybe if our members of our community want to send through their results as well with that, that'd be fantastic.
Well, we need to do a shootout. But the thing is, I would say it should be a shootout between the analog outboard hardware and the plugin, because it would be apples versus apples. I mean, if I were to say, well, let me try this with my Mazalek, how do we know whether I need 1:0.2 ratio or whatever to match what you've got? So it's apples and oranges then.
My very, very last question. Thanks for that, Bob. My very, very last question for you. What music are you listening to yourself at the minute? What you're working on, or what you've worked on maybe recently. So I know with a lot of our engineers, they can't tell us what they've got coming up sometimes. And also, what are you listening to for pleasure at the minute? What's your jam at the moment?
Okay. My pleasure listening is Latin jazz.
Wow.
There is we have a Tesla Model 3, which has an absolutely fantastic sound system. And whenever we go out, we tune. We're really lucky. There is a local Latin jazz HD radio station, and I'm learning about all kinds of new Latin jazz artists. This Cuban singer, Jaime Nuviola, who I think one of my compatriots, Alex P., mastered, and I'm very jealous of you, Alex, because that's one of my specialties. And she is an incredible singer. And so I listen to Latin jazz whenever I can. And when I get tired of it, I'll switch to talk radio on NPR or classical music in the car. So that's my current listening.
Yep.
And groups that I've worked with that are kind of cool. And they're all over the map. The Superions, it's kind of a funny, crazy, rocky group whose lead singer was in the B-52s. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I mastered them. And the Knoxville Jazz Orchestra, I am so privileged.
Nice.
I rarely do my own mixing.
Mm-hmm.
I have two mix engineers, and we go up to the mix room, and I let them mix under my supervision, and then we come down right downstairs to the mastering room, and we'll switch back and forth and compare, and I'll say a little more highs here, a little more lows there, or raise this or that. But most of the time, I hire somebody who knows what they're doing, and so the mixes oftentimes come back exactly the way I want. And then it has to be approved by the client too. So the track record is very good. Maybe one revision here and there.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was really incredible. I have that listed actually. So if you look up an Punjabi Indian duo named Hari, Hari, and Sukhmani, you know about them?
No, I'll note them down though and have a listen.
Oh yeah, note them down. Sorry, occasionally your accent gets to me. I don't understand what you're saying. So, but that's it. You can always write it on a little slip of paper and pass it on. Okay, so Hari and Sukhmani, they have a great video out there that I mastered the sound for, and we call them. I guess the closest is Folktronica, because he's an incredible synthesizer artist and singer, and she does the lead in Punjabi Indian language, and he speaks in English most of the time, and they go back and forth, and they do a little hip-hoppy thing, and I'm really proud of that. But the Knoxville Jazz Orchestra, I went up and mixed in the mix room.
Wow.
Both the incredible top violinist Regina Carter was the guest on that, and the great Cyrus Chestnut, jazz pianist, was the guest on that. And they're really happy with my work. I've mixed about 3 of their albums and mastered about 6. Then we have the Kruger Brothers, a very fine folk Americana group, and Marley's Ghost, a group called Marley's Ghost that does reggae among other things, which is another one of my specialties. And but they are primarily an Americana group from Seattle area of Washington State, and I have mastered about 6 or 7 of their albums. Sinead O'Connor, who we all know, I've done an album by her. Sylvia, a country pop singer, and this one you should look up and write down. Mock Deer. It's called Mockdeer is his pseudonym, and he is British. And his album, he's a singer-songwriter, and the album is incredible dynamics. It's a tour de force. It just flows from beginning to end.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Bill Hubbard Orchestra. I did. I worked from 4 stems with
Yep.
Bill with the young Mr. Hubbard, because Bill Hubbard passed away, and they did a tribute to the father. Classic big band jazz, and I helped them to get to a great master, and they worked here with the artists. God, I could go on and on and on and on. Oh, here's one that's absolutely fantastic. The Bombay Dub Orchestra. Bombay Dub Orchestra, also from Britain.
Okay.
That I've mastered 2 of their albums, and the one called 3 Cities is incredible. I brought the CD over to visit Bruce Swedien, and he wouldn't let me take it back. He said, "Oh my God, the bass on this thing. The bass goes down to the center of the earth." And I made sure of that. And they're really, really, really happy. It's got this pulse. Now, what they do is the 2 composer artists are synthesizer experts and also arrangers. And they go to India to record all these acoustic instruments, big string ensembles, everything. There are 75 instrumentalists on these Bombay Dub Orchestra albums. Then they bring them back and they add their synthesizer accompaniment and deep bass pulse. And I'm responsible for helping that to just go to the center of the earth. You could call me Big Bass as far as I'm concerned. I got about 20 here, but those are just some examples for you.
Oh, Bob, please say if
I
you
could go on that.
Absolutely. If you
Send
could
a list?
send a list through to the community, we'd love to listen. Absolutely love to listen.
Sure.
I have.
Thank you.
Before I forget, my very, very last question for you would be how, and this is so important, how do you look after your ears, and what advice would you give to all of us to look after our ears when we're mastering and mixing?
What?
I knew you was going to go there. I knew it.
When I was 19, I could hear the burglar alarms, the ultrasonic burglar alarms in jewelry stores. Mm-hmm. And I worked in a television network, and I wouldn't walk into the master control room because all the horizontal oscillators from the TVs. And then after decade after decade after decade, I've lost that sensitivity, but I can still EQ the Mazalek at 27 kilohertz, and here have to be steps. It goes down towards 10K. So I still have pretty linear hearing. My sensitivity is not as good as it used to be. As Bruce Swedien used to say, so many miles on the tires. But I'm lucky. I don't play too loudly. I play systems that aren't very distorted. The pleasure level is good. And with mastering, it's different than mixing in one important respect. I'm not comping. I'm not playing the same passage over and over and over again. And I don't always have to listen to the whole song in order to get the EQ and the processing right. I might listen to the loudest passage for 5 minutes or whatever, and then listen to the softest passage, and you can see these things on the waveform. And then when I think I have it, and it's sitting, and it's in the park, what do we say? In the pocket, I'll go to the head of the song and I will capture it. So I have these resting periods. 8 hours of mastering doesn't mean 8 hours of listening like it would in a mixing studio.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Bob. And anything else from yourself, Bob, before we go? Anything you'd like to leave us with today?
Nothing I would say publicly.
And on that bombshell. No, Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been an absolutely wonderful guest. It's an absolute honor to chat with you today. And thank you so much for your time. And maybe next time we'd love to see your mix studio as well.
Wait till you see those. Wait till you see those Key 3 BXT speakers. Look them up.
I will.
Incredible. The best, among the best speakers for mixing and mastering, actually, but they're in the mix room that anyone could imagine.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Bob. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. You take care. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Bob. Me too. Cheers.